The twin suns bled across the alien horizon, their light glinting off armor torn and smoking. Commander Varel froze mid-step. There, beside a dying campfire, sat the human she'd been sent to rescue, calmly gnawing on the charred leg of the creature her entire species called the Unkillable. When he noticed her, he didn't salute or explain. He just grinned through the rising smoke and said, "Relax. It tastes better than it screams." Commander Varel's training had prepared her for many horrors, plasma storms, nerve leeches, even the silent void between stars. But not for this. The human sat there as if camping in his own backyard, fire crackling, smoke curling into the violet dusk. A half-devoured carcass lay across a makeshift spit. Its scales shimmered with residual biolight, pulsing faintly like a dying starfish. And Ajrak, she felt her stomach tighten. Among her people, killing one was considered impossible. Eating one was blasphemy. The human noticed her the way a soldier notices a breeze, without surprise, just quiet awareness. He wiped grease from his fingers with a strip of scorched fabric and nodded toward the fire.
"Careful where you step."
"They tend to explode if you cook the glands too long," Vadrel's voice cracked through the smoke. "You desecrated a divine sentinel." He blinked at her, eyes an unsettling shade of amused blue. "Divine, it tried to chew through my leg. I'm calling that self-defense and dinner." She wanted to arrest him, drag him back to command, and maybe disinfect her memory. But curiosity pinned her in place. The smell of roasted flesh was thick, metallic, and disturbingly pleasant. Against her will, she leaned closer. "You killed it alone." He shrugged. "Mostly alone? My rifle ran dry halfway through, so I improvised." He gestured toward the broken branch beside him, half spear, half joke. Lightning flashed far off over the ridge, momentarily painting the human in silver light. His armor was dented, patched with strips of alien hide, his face streaked with dust and blood. He looked like something carved out of endurance itself. "You don't fear it," she whispered. "Fear's useful," he said, "but you can't let it decide the menu." The casual remark unsettled her more than the corpse. Behind them, the jungle stirred, a low collective growl rising from the darkness. The dead Ajrak's scales brightened, flickering in patterns that looked disturbingly deliberate, like code written in light. The human's grin faded. He reached for his weapon. "Oh, guess word got around," he murmured. Dinner's family just RSVP'd. The growls multiplied, circling the camp like rolling thunder. Varel's instincts screamed to flee, but the human, Reese Calder, she recalled from his mission file, moved with slow, deliberate calm. He kicked dirt onto the fire until the light dimmed to embers. In the half-dark, his voice dropped to a whisper that sounded almost like a joke. "Bad news. I think the neighbors smelled barbecue." She tightened her grip on her plasma spear. "You provoked the hive. They never hunt in daylight, let alone together." Reese crouched beside the carcass, studying the glowing patterns that crawled across its hide. "That's coordination. They're talking through bioluminescence, same way bees dance, just with more teeth." A tremor rippled underfoot. Somewhere in the forest, branches cracked like bones. The air smelled of ozone and blood. Varel's pulse hammered. "We must reach my skimmer." 2 clicks east. Reese slung a small pack over his shoulder, calm even as shadows moved between the trees. "Lead the way, Commander. I'll handle crowd control." They ran. Leaves sliced their armor as they tore through the undergrowth. Behind them, something massive crashed through the brush, gaining fast. A silver tongue of plasma flared past Reese's head. Varel's shot, precise and furious. The beam struck an Ajrak square in the chest. It staggered but didn't fall. "Nice shot," he called. "Now multiply that by 5. 5? Minimum." They burst into a clearing dominated by the ruins of an ancient watchtower, half stone, half fused metal. Reese dove behind a fallen pillar, snapped open a compact launcher, and fired a cluster of flares. The sudden light disoriented the pack, scattering them just long enough for Varel to drag him toward the tower's interior. Inside, dust hung like fog. Carved murals lined the walls, Valari hunters standing triumphant over Ajrak corpses. The contradiction froze her in place. "We used to hunt them," she breathed. Reese traced a cracked relief with gloved fingers. "Guess your ancestors had better PR." Before she could answer, his wrist display pulsed red. Lines of alien code streamed across the screen. Broadcast signatures, not random noise. He frowned. "They're not just hunting us. They're calling something bigger." Thunder shook the ruin again, and far below, a second glow began to rise, cold, mechanical, and angry. The ruin shuddered again, dust drifting from the ceiling like falling ash. Outside, lightning split the sky into veins of violet fire. Virel steadied herself against the wall. That wasn't thunder. Reese checked his scanner. Static hissed through every channel. "No," he said quietly. That was something waking up. A low hum vibrated through the floor. Carved stone shifted under their boots, revealing hidden conduits pulsing with faint blue light. The murals around them flared to life, replaying scenes thousands of years old, Velari warriors kneeling before the Azrak. Then the images twisted. Humans appeared in the projections, their forms simplified but unmistakable. Virel turned to him, eyes wide. "Impossible. We've never met your kind before." Reese watched the hologram of a human handing a glowing device to a Velari chieftain. "Looks like we did," he murmured. "Just a few thousand years early." The realization hung between them until a crack of thunder snapped it in half. Acid rain began to hammer the ruin's roof. Outside, the pack screamed in unison. The sound wasn't animal. It was organized. Reese crouched beside a narrow control node, half buried in rubble. "This place isn't a temple. It's a transmitter. Those creatures are guarding something, and we just tripped the alarm." Virel knelt beside him, helping clear debris. For the first time, she didn't look at him like a blasphemer, but like an ally. "Then we shut it down." The storm roared, pressing darkness through every crack. Water seeped down the walls, sizzling as it met alien circuitry. Their shoulders brushed as they worked, silent except for the hiss of the rain and the distant growl of predators. Reese risked a glance at her. "You always this calm during extinction events?" Her lip twitched. "You always this talkative during them?" He grinned. "Keeps the fear from getting ideas." A deep vibration cut through their exchange. The floor split, revealing a chasm lit by a single colossal eye far below, biomechanical, awake and aware. The voice that followed wasn't spoken. It filled their heads like a tide. "The Devourer protocol has been reactivated." Virel staggered back, clutching her skull. "They think we're the infection." Reese tightened his grip on his weapon, the humor gone. "Then it's time," he said, "to convince the gods we bite back." The ruin convulsed as if the planet itself were breathing. Walls peeled apart, revealing veins of light that pulsed in rhythm with the thing below. Reese barely kept his footing. "Well," he muttered, "that's new." Virel steadied herself against a pillar that was suddenly warm, almost alive. It's spreading through the crust. "The entire hive is awakening." Outside, the forest screamed. Shapes moved through the lightning flashes, hundreds of Azarak, converging toward the ruin like cells drawn to a wound. Reese scanned the control node again. Symbols cascaded across the screen, faster than he could translate. "It's a failsafe," he said. "If the hive thinks the gods are under attack, it terraforms everything to protect them." "Total reset, meaning?" she asked. "Meaning this world dies so they can rebuild it clean." Virel's throat tightened. "Then stop it." He glanced at her, a quick crooked smile flickering despite the chaos. "Yeah, I was just waiting for permission." The node's energy core was organic, living code. It responded to biological input, and his readings matched the frequency perfectly. Of course they did. He'd been injected with adaptive nanites years ago during an off-world mission. They were the same tech buried in the hive. He exhaled slowly. "I can override it. If I sync my system with theirs." Her eyes narrowed. "You mean burn yourself alive?" "Only partially," he said, too lightly. Then quieter, "Someone has to teach them a new command." Virel grabbed his wrist. "You are not sacrificing yourself for my world." Reese looked at her hand, strong, trembling. "That's the difference between us. You see sacrifice. I see negotiation." A deafening roar shook the ruin. The first wave of predators broke through the ceiling. Their scales shimmered with hive light, eyes locked on him. Rhys jammed his knife into the node, nanites flaring from his veins like liquid silver. "Hey," he said to the oncoming horde, voice raw but steady. "New rule. Evolution answers to consent." The room erupted in white fire. The Azrak froze mid-lunge, their lights shifting from crimson to deep blue. One by one they lowered their heads. Virel stared at the impossible sight. "What did you do?" Rhys sagged against the console, smiling through the smoke. "I updated their religion." The silence that followed was unreal. The forest had stopped breathing. The air smelled of ozone and rain instead of blood. Virel lowered her weapon, waiting for another wave that never came. The Azrak stood motionless in the ruin's open roof, their eyes glowing blue instead of red. Slowly, almost reverently, they turned away and disappeared into the mist. Rhys knelt beside the dimming console, chest heaving. Faint silver veins still shimmered beneath his skin. "You're alive," she said, half disbelief, half relief. He looked up at her, voice hoarse. "Mostly. Might need a firmware update." She huffed a shaky laugh, despite the tremor in her voice. Outside, the storm was clearing. For the first time, sunlight pierced through the violet clouds. The jungle looked different, still wild but calmer, as if something ancient had finally exhaled. Rhys limped out of the ruins, taking it all in with a tired grin. Not bad for a day's work. Didn't die, didn't blow up the planet, invented a religion. Virel walked beside him, the faintest smile softening her sharp features. A heretic turned savior. "My council will never believe this." "Good," he said. "I'm running out of ways to explain myself anyway." They reached what was left of his camp. The fire pit still smoldered, a single ember glowing under the ashes. Rhys poked it with a stick and tossed in a piece of dried meat. "One last meal before the paperwork." She raised a brow. "You still eat that creature after all this?" He grinned. "Especially after all this. Tradition, you know." She hesitated, then sat beside him, armor clicking softly. After a long silence, she reached over and took a bite. Her expression shifted from caution to reluctant surprise. "It's actually good." "Careful," he said, smiling. "That's how civilizations fall, one good recipe at a time." Above them, the sky cleared to a color neither had a word for. The jungle shimmered, reborn. Virel looked at him, her tone softer now. "What will you do when your people call you back?" Rhys stared at the horizon where smoke met light. "Maybe I'll answer. Maybe I'll pretend the signal didn't get through." The ember flared, catching the wind. For a moment, it looked like a star being born again.